He doesn't speak loudly. He doesn't demand attention. But when he walks in, people shift, not because he asked them to, but because something about him tells the room to make space. He doesn't wear a title. He might not hold a position. But his presence, it arrives before his words. And you watch him, wondering why. Why does everyone notice him? Why do they treat him like he matters before he's even done anything? Here's the uncomfortable truth. He's not necessarily more intelligent than you, not more skilled, not more deserving, but he does something you've been taught not to do. He walks like no one is above him, and the world believes it. You were taught to wait your turn, to be modest, to let your work speak for itself. But the world doesn't have time to listen for your story. It reads your walk. It scans your posture. It hears your silence before it hears your voice. If your presence whispers uncertainty, the world assumes you don't belong. And that's why "act like you're the best" isn't just a motivational phrase. It's a survival strategy. Power doesn't arrive before confidence. Confidence opens the door to power. You don't wait to feel deserving and you assume you are. And that assumption becomes your access. Yes, it may feel like a performance, but performance isn't fake. Performance is intent in motion. An actor on stage isn't lying. He's choosing to show up fully, to embody the role so powerfully that everyone else believes it too. That's your job, not to pretend, but to perform your future self with enough discipline that it becomes real. Because in the theater of life, the hesitant don't get the lead. No matter how gifted they are behind the curtain, the world does not reward talent. It rewards certainty. The man who moves with clarity, even when he's wrong, gets heard. The man who hesitates, even when he's right, gets ignored. People follow conviction. They lean toward the voice that sounds like it knows, even if it doesn't. Confidence is not a trophy, it's armor. You wear it before the battle, not after the victory. How many moments have you missed because you didn't feel ready? How many times did you stay quiet, even though your mind was sharp and your insight deep? How often have you watched someone less prepared take the place you wanted, not because they were better, but because they carried certainty while you waited for permission? Let this be the last day you wait for permission. The world doesn't pass out invitations to greatness. It recognizes those who walk like they already belong. That's the secret most people never see. It's not always the most capable who rise. It's the most convincing. The ones who walk like the crown is already on their head, even when no one else can see it yet. Eventually, the world starts to see it too. And no, that's not magic, that's repetition. It's the discipline of embodying the man you want to be until everyone else just accepts it, because you've accepted it first. You might say, "I'm not that confident yet." You don't have to be, you just have to act like it. Not to deceive anyone, but to teach your nervous system who you're becoming. This isn't a lie, it's training. You're not pretending, you're transforming. Like a sculptor chiseling from stone, you chip away at hesitation until all that remains is presence. You refine how you walk into a room, how you make eye contact, how you sit, how you breathe, how you speak. Every movement is a signal. And people don't look beneath the surface, not because they're cruel, but because they don't have time. So, what does your surface say? Does it say, "I'm waiting to be chosen"? Or, "I've already chosen myself"? You are not just living in the world, you are projecting into it, and the world is responding to your signal, not your potential. That's why presence matters more than performance. That's why confidence outweighs credentials. That's why posture shapes perception. You might think this is unfair. That merit should be enough. That hard work should speak louder than appearance. But truth isn't what leads people. Certainty is. The world doesn't see your effort. It senses your presence. It doesn't measure how long you've prepared. It reacts to how certain you sound the moment you open your mouth. You can spend hours crafting brilliant ideas and still be ignored because someone else delivered half-baked thoughts with full conviction. This isn't about fairness, it's about signal. People don't follow competence, they follow confidence. And confidence doesn't wait for proof. It decides what's true and builds the proof afterward. That's why some rise quickly while others stay waiting, not because they're better, but because they dare to declare themselves first. You don't become ready. You decide that you are. That decision changes everything. It changes how you enter a room, how you look someone in the eye, how you sit at the table, how your voice moves through space. The world doesn't follow perfection. It follows certainty. So stop rehearsing a version of yourself you hope one day to become. Step into it now, awkwardly if you must. Stand tall, even if your legs shake. Speak clearly, even if your voice wants to crack. Look directly, even if part of you wants to hide. Why? Because every time you do, you're teaching your body something. You're teaching your nervous system how to lead. And eventually, it learns. Eventually, it forgets the fear. And all that's left is presence. This is not about arrogance. It's not about domination. It's about choosing to exist fully, to stop shrinking, to stop apologizing for taking up space. You were not made to blend into the background. You were not designed to be a footnote. So why are you playing like one? You think the room will notice your value on its own? It won't. It will notice the energy you walk in with. If you walk in hesitating, second-guessing yourself, over-smiling to be accepted, making yourself small so others can feel big, then the room believes what you believe, that you don't belong. But if you walk in grounded, measured, centered, not loud, not aggressive, just certain, then people sense that. And they shift. They listen differently. They treat you differently. They make space. It's not that they're trying to exclude others. It's that they're wired to respond to strength. Certainty is gravity. It pulls everything toward it. You don't need to be the smartest. You don't need to be the most prepared. But you do need to stop hiding. The world mirrors what you send it. Send it conviction, and it will believe you. Send it apology, and it will overlook you. Every gesture, every tone, every word is a declaration. This is who I am. This is how I expect to be treated. So how have you been declaring yourself? Like a man waiting to be noticed, or like one who knows he belongs? Confidence is not volume. It's not shouting, it's presence, it's silence with weight, stillness with intention, a slow breath instead of rushed approval. When you sit in a room and say nothing, but look like you know exactly what matters, people lean in. They wonder what you're thinking, they pay attention, because mystery, when paired with confidence, becomes magnetism. But mystery without presence? That's just invisibility. And you weren't made to disappear. When you walk into a room, your job isn't to explain yourself. It's to own the space first. Before you speak, you've already said something with your energy. So speak when you're ready. But when you do, let your words carry the full weight of your belief. Not just belief in your ideas, but belief in your identity. Say it like it matters. Move like it matters. Look like it matters. Because people don't just listen to content, they listen to energy. And if your energy doesn't believe your own voice, no one else will either. You don't need to have all the answers, but you do need to speak like you belong in the conversation. And here's what most never learn. You don't have to be chosen to lead. You have to choose to lead. First, think about the last time you held back. That split second where you had something powerful to say and chose silence instead. It didn't feel small in the moment. It felt polite, respectful, like the right thing to do. But what really happened was this. You sent a signal, not to the room, but to yourself. You whispered to your own spirit, I don't trust what I carry yet. And that whisper echoes, not just in your own body, but in the room. Because people are sensitive, not always to your ideas, but to your certainty. If you hesitate, they feel it. If you over-explain, they read it as weakness. If your voice quivers, if your eyes dart, if your shoulders sink, the message is loud and clear. I don't believe in myself yet. And if you don't, why should they? This isn't about arrogance, it's about leadership, and leadership begins with self-declaration. The world doesn't give you a microphone when it sees you're ready. It hands it to the one who already stepped up. The man who moves like he owns the moment gets treated like he does, even if he's unsure inside, even if he's figuring it out on the fly. You've seen it. The average voice that somehow leads the exceptional team. The underqualified candidate who still wins the position. The one who speaks first and gets followed. Not because they were right, but because they seemed right. Certainty shapes perception. Perception shapes trust, and trust opens the door. So if you keep waiting to be ready, you're already late. Readiness is a myth. No one feels ready, not at first. The difference between those who rise and those who remain unseen is this. The ones who rise act like they're ready, even while their heart is racing. And that act becomes the truth. Because your brain doesn't know the difference between fear and performance when you keep repeating it. Each time you act with conviction, you lay another brick in the foundation of your identity. And over time, what began as a performance becomes presence, real, grounded, undeniable. This is how you become powerful, not by being chosen, but by choosing yourself again and again until the world forgets to question it. We think the world will notice us when we're excellent, when we've earned it, when we've crossed some invisible line. But the truth, the world notices us when we show up like we matter, when we speak without shrinking, when we enter the room without explaining, when we sit in silence with the weight of someone who could speak but doesn't need to. Because sometimes it's not your words that draw respect, it's your ability to sit in your own gravity. And gravity is built, not given. You build it by showing up as the same man every day. Not perfect, consistent, not loud, deliberate, not aggressive, grounded, and people start to respond. They calibrate to you, not because they understand you, but because they feel you. Remember, we are emotional creatures. We don't follow spreadsheets. We follow sensation, energy, presence. So if you bring that presence again and again, people begin to adapt. Not because they've analyzed you, but because they believe what you've taught them to believe. And what are you teaching them now? That you're waiting to be good enough? That you're hoping for someone to call on you? That you're shrinking to make others comfortable? Then stop. That signal does not serve you. That energy does not open doors. It keeps you small, not out of humility, but fear. You don't owe anyone an apology for your potential. You don't need to shrink to be accepted. You don't need to wait for permission to speak. Greatness is not a reward, it's an assumption. And the man who dares to assume it, consistently, calmly, without apology, becomes the one the world believes. This doesn't mean you have to shout. It doesn't mean you have to dominate. In fact, the loudest person in the room is often the most insecure. True presence is quiet. It's measured. It's subtle, but undeniable. It's in your spine, your breath, your pace, your eyes. It's in how you say no without flinching, how you say yes without explaining, how you hold silence like a sword. You've seen it, you've felt it. That man who doesn't need to prove anything because he already decided who he is, not because the world told him, but because he told himself, and the world listened. You can become that, not overnight, not by pretending, but by practicing. Confidence is a discipline, presence is a craft, and self-belief is a habit, trained, not found. Every day you show up without apology, you're laying bricks. Every time you speak without shrinking, you're reinforcing the frame. Every time you walk like you belong, you are rewriting the story. Not for them, for you. Because if you don't decide who you are, they will. And they won't get it right. They'll see what your fear projects, and they'll hand you a role that never fits who you could have been. So choose, now. Act like the man you know you can become. Even if your voice shakes, even if no one claps, even if the room doubts, you do it for the repetition, for the pattern, for the transformation. Because repetition becomes reputation, and reputation becomes identity. And identity becomes the crown they eventually see, not because it was always there, but because you wore it long before they believed you deserved it. There's a kind of power that doesn't make noise. It doesn't arrive announcing itself. It simply walks into the room and everything shifts. Not because it demands attention, but because it already owns it. It's not arrogance, it's certainty. And that kind of certainty isn't built overnight. It's carved from silence, from restraint, from nights where you said nothing but thought everything. It's built in moments where you chose to hold your ground when your pride begged you to react. Presence isn't loud, presence is earned, and people can sense it before you ever speak. You see, the truly powerful don't perform. They don't try to impress. They aren't seeking applause, likes, or validation, because their worth isn't outsourced, it's rooted. The louder someone needs to speak to prove their worth, the more they reveal they don't actually believe it. The ones who know don't need to convince, they simply are. This is why the people who are feared the most often say the least. And it's not out of intimidation. It's because their silence makes more noise than most people's words. You don't need to constantly express who you are. Your energy does it for you. The way you enter a room, the way you sit with yourself, the way you make decisions without hesitation. That's the mark of someone who's done the internal work. You can't fake that. You can copy style, you can mimic posture, you can rehearse lines, but presence, that's real-time truth. That's the energetic residue of your inner life. And if your inner life is weak, anxious, scattered, no matter how well you dress it, it bleeds through. People might not know why they don't trust you, but they'll feel it. Something won't align. Your words will say one thing, but your energy will say another, and they'll believe the energy. So if you want to command respect, stop focusing on the outer show, work on the invisible, work on the quiet, master the moments no one sees. There's a certain confidence that doesn't come from winning. It comes from failing and still standing tall, from losing everything and rebuilding in silence, from being underestimated and choosing not to fight for approval because you already know who you are. Let others doubt you. Let them underestimate you. Let them whisper about you in rooms you're not in. What they don't realize is that you've stopped trying to be understood. You're not explaining anymore. You're not begging to be seen. You are seen by yourself. And that's enough. Most people are waiting to be chosen, but when you choose yourself, the entire game changes. You're not applying for a seat at their table. You're building your own. And suddenly the people who once overlooked you will find themselves circling back, confused, curious. They'll wonder how you did it, where it came from, but they won't realize they were watching the storm form in silence and mistook your stillness for absence. You were never absent. You were observing, you were building, you were becoming. And now you walk differently. You speak only when it's necessary. You no longer argue to prove your point. Your life is the argument. This kind of power isn't about dominance, it's about alignment. When your actions, thoughts, and values are in sync, people feel it. You become unshakable, not because you're invincible, but because you've made peace with your own shadows. True presence doesn't require perfection, it requires integration. You've seen your flaws, you've faced your fears, and instead of hiding them, you've owned them. You've made them part of your power. You don't pretend to be untouchable. You simply don't flinch when life touches you. This is the kind of strength that turns pain into clarity, silence into strategy, and solitude into sanctuary. You don't need a spotlight. You've become the flame. You don't need attention. Your focus is louder than applause. You don't chase moments. You are the moment. So when people look at you now and say, "There's something different about you," understand it's not what you gained. It's what you let go of. You let go of needing to be understood. You let go of seeking approval. You let go of proving your worth. And what's left is someone who doesn't just walk into a room, but someone who changes the room. There comes a moment when you no longer seek permission to exist. You're no longer auditioning for love, for respect, for inclusion. You've stopped shrinking to fit in rooms that weren't built to hold your growth. And suddenly, your silence starts to feel like thunder. You don't even recognize the old version of you anymore. The one that used to over-explain, over-apologize, over-please. You look back and realize that version of you wasn't weak. It was just still searching, still becoming. But now you've arrived, not at a destination, but at yourself. You've realized the real journey wasn't about success or status or validation. It was about self-possession. It was about reclaiming the pieces of your soul you gave away to be accepted. And now that you're whole again, you don't need to speak loudly. You are the message. This kind of wholeness doesn't need to be seen because it can be felt. People feel when you've done the inner work. They feel the weight of your presence, the clarity of your gaze, the calm in your decisions. They feel the difference between someone who wants power and someone who is power. You don't have to dominate the room. You just have to walk in fully aligned, and suddenly everything recalibrates around you. But here's what most people don't understand. The power you carry isn't about being unshakable on the outside. It's about being rooted on the inside. You've been through storms that no one saw. You've survived versions of yourself you were afraid to face. You've rebuilt from nothing, not once, but many times. And in that process, you stopped chasing the spotlight because you realized you are the light. And now you move differently. You don't beg to be heard. Your silence speaks volumes. You don't race to be first because you're not competing anymore. You don't chase after what you want because what's meant for you doesn't require you to lose yourself to have it. Let them wonder where this version of you came from. Let them speculate, gossip, misunderstand. They weren't there when you cried alone. They didn't see the nights you broke quietly and rebuilt silently. They don't have to understand your peace. They only have to witness it. Because now you're not available for anything that costs your integrity. You're not negotiating your value. You're not staying silent to keep the peace. You are the peace. This is the quiet rise, the ascension that doesn't need celebration, because the reward is becoming. And when you become, you don't chase the world aligns with you, so breathe deeply. Feel your own gravity. You're not who you were. You're not even who you thought you'd be. You're something better, you're real, you're awake, you're here. And in a world of noise, being deeply present, being fully you, is the rarest power there is. Now carry that with you. Speak less, live more, stand taller, love deeper, be the calm in the storm. And when they ask you how you did it, just smile, because some things are better felt than explained. And if this voice found you at the right time, maybe it's because the world needed this version of you. So don't hold back. Don't shrink. You didn't come this far to be almost. You came to be undeniable. And if you're still listening, then maybe that undeniable power was already in you, just waiting to be remembered. So remember who you are, and rise, silently, fully, permanently.